This podcast is a member of WildGamesProductions.com and D20Radio.com.
This is James M. Wood here, and D&D experts like myself love listening to the Save or Die podcast because I learn something new every time I tune in.
You burst through the door. You find a small room filled with gold and jewels and a red dragon. He starts to breathe. Save or die! I'm on toilets like a 68 Impala. They see nothing matter. Critical damage from my warhammer. I told the beach and wore down every single farm that goes by the walls of my mighty blow. I lay 'em low, yes I lay 'em low.
Welcome to the Save or Die podcast, a podcast about classic Dungeons and Dragons.
Bring on your goblin holes and band of oaks, hulking zombies and kobolds. And oh no, no troll, don't slow me down, oh no. Don't dig a vicious, ever vicious, awesome.
Hello, you cool cats. Welcome to the Save or Die podcast. As usual, I'm Blind Lemon Monroe, also known as DM Mike. And with me is Fat Apple Washington,
Yeah.
known as DM Liz, and Squinty Banana Carter, known as DM Jim. And since we're talking about the blues, and no one gets out of here without singing the blues, we're talking about BLUEHOLME. Apparently, I think the only... Well, no, Mazes and Perils is still out. A retro clone of the Holmes D&D basic set. But first...
What did we do at gaming this week?
Who cares? Ow!
What have we been doing this week? Or at least since the last recording. And we'll start with Jim, because his is more interesting.
Oh, God, how much time have you got? I slept all weekend. I just got back from GameholeCon in Madison, Wisconsin last week. It was the third GameholeCon, but my very first, and it's the single plushest con I've ever been to in my life. It ran
Plushest?
like... Plush, yes. I mean...
Okay. It was stuffed and soft to cuddle with?
Well, two things. Part of the swag you got was a plushy owlbear. So, literal...
Yeah, I saw pictures of that.
Yeah, that's hard to beat. Yeah.
And I just got to say, Alex knows how to treat his special guest. He apparently also owns a like college restaurant bar and took us all out. It was like all you could eat and all you could drink one night, and then we got to go upstairs to the literal game hole, which is like a secret.
Yeah, I was going to ask if that was the bar restaurant that the game hole was under or over.
Yeah, we all got to go up there to see where he and his crew game, and I mean, it was just the most ridiculous display you ever saw. He had a display case with a wood grain OD&D set, 3 pristine copies of Dragon Magazine #1, which is 2 more than any human should have. And they just for those guys, they made like a plushie. Ours were like a regular size. They made a giant one that's like the size of a whole person, like Fat Albert big. And
Oh my gosh.
it's now resting in the rafters of that game hole room. Ready to poop on people.
Nothing worse than owlbear poop.
Tim Kask and I, jumped in a car and did a road trip. It was about 8 hours, and it was fantastic fun. Got to, you know how like when you run con games, there's always that guy that you have to kind of sit on to keep him from wrecking the game for everybody else. I had 4 games and a DCC tournament included, and had nothing but all great players.
Well, cool.
And
I didn't ever have that guy in our con too, but we'll get to that later.
And I just get to rest up for a week, and then next Thursday I'm headed up to Yukon and Ypsilanti, where I'll be running both Mutant Crawl Classics and a Dungeon Crawl Classics adventure called Synthetic Swordsmen of the Purple Planet, which I both wrote and will be released at the con for sale.
Ooh.
How Burroughsian.
Edgar Rice Burroughs' The Purple Planet, all up.
Sweet. How far is that con from you?
Car
drive, I mean.
I went last year. Ypsilanti, I think it's like 4 or 5 hours.
Okay, so certainly closer than the whole.
So
And
yeah,
it's a lot more fun to say Ypsilanti.
Than Madison, Wisconsin.
Ypsilanti, Ypsilanti, Ypsilanti.
well, this year at least I know how to say it right. Ypsilanti. Not Ypsilanti.
Jakeways.
Yeah.
Must remember, Jakeways. Anyway, well, that's cool. And then, so I guess it just means us. I'll let Liz talk about Rose City Comicon, but before we do, I'm just going to jump in that I am running as some listeners may know, our second edition AD&D DM has burnt out, which after 5 years I think is pretty good, actually.
He lasted a lot longer than I would have thought.
Yeah. So I've reluctantly agreed to take over the DMing, and by popular request, I wanted to do Holmes Basic, but they made me do Castles and Crusades. So I'm just slipping in some Holmes rules every now and then when they're not looking. But
What do you mean my bastard sword only does 1d6 damage?
and you go last. But yeah, I had them to celebrate Halloween. They were randomly teleported by a failed monster summoning spell into Tegel Manor. Yes, I know, first level characters in Tegel Manor, but I figured it was all right because their goal wasn't to clean out the place. The goal was to get out. And they did, and I only killed 2 of the 6 characters, including Liz's.
Mine!
Oh,
She was killed by a ghostly bowling ball.
Was pretty solid for something ghostly. I just gotta say.
Well, yeah.
you guys are my heroes because I've
One
never.
hit wonder too. It's like I got
She was
I got
running a magic
once.
move, so yeah.
Bam.
I've never dated, lived with, or been married to anyone that I could get away with that. So
Killing the characters.
yeah. So you guys are my
Oh,
heroes.
Mike's killed my characters tons of times. This is nothing new.
I was rolling out in front for that game. So in
Half
fact,
the
Liz
time-
was rolling the dice
I was
for
gonna
me.
say half the time he had me rolling for him at the table.
So
And-
nobody can claim that I was.
And I will say, I used the same D20 for my rolls and for the monster rolls for Mike. All the monster rolls, 17s, 18s, all of my rolls, 3, 5.
Welcome to my world, Liz.
Stupid.
Anyway, so that's going on. Mead joined once, then she got a job, then can't come back, and so a Sturge attacked her halfling in the middle of the night. I rolled a nat 20, and it basically drained her and killed her. So when everybody woke up, she was dead.
Yeah,
And
you sound.
there was a really fat Sturge flopping around in the woods if they had went looking for it because it couldn't get airborne. But,
You really sound all broken up about that.
Well, since she had dropped out of the game, I had intended on getting rid of her somehow, but I didn't expect it to be that quick.
It was like the first encounter, too.
Yeah, it's like, okay, she's on watch by herself. Does she see the Sturge? No. Okay, the Sturge attacks her. Nat 20, max damage, 6 hit points. She has 6 hit points. Okay, well, she's at death's door, but it doesn't matter because nobody's awake to save her.
Well,
So-
he even gave her a chance
saving throw.
to see if she could at least cry out before being, rendered unconscious and dead, but she failed it and didn't get to alert anyone.
Although it was worth it because Chase's barbarian took her leather armor and went into a store into the next town trying to sell the armor. Said, "Here, little girl armor," and tosses it on the bar. There's blood stains down the back, and the owner of the armor shop's going, "What? What happened?" "Oh, don't worry. I bury her in woods."
So what you're saying is, as a DM, you've got an airtight alibi with the husband as a witness
Yes.
when Mead comes back.
Not that Mead generally needs a reason, but yeah, basically. So, now Rose City Comicon, Liz?
Hey, well, We left early, which was a good thing. That was the weekend that Hurricane Patricia hit the coast of Mexico, and by the time Friday came along, Tyler and most of North Texas was just being drenched in torrential rainfalls. So we had actually driven up, I think it was Wednesday night, and we were there Thursday, and then Friday was when the really bad weather started. We drove out in the rain to the fairgrounds to set up, raining really hard. We were able to get a fairly decent parking spot close to the back doors, and so we didn't have to go too far in the wet to carry our stuff in. But we got all set up. The con technically opened Friday afternoon, late in the day, but we decided instead that, we were just going to go back to my parents' house because it was on the other side of town and the roads were already starting to get kind of washed out in places. And there were a couple of low spots that we went through in the car on the way back to my folks where I was kind of going, technically, I probably shouldn't be driving through here.
Hope it doesn't kill the engine.
Yeah, but we were okay. We got home. I think if we had stayed, it would not have been good for me to drive through those low places. So we got back. There was a VIP dinner, and at some place, it was like Cowboys and Coaches was the restaurant, something like that.
A restaurant and club.
Yeah. So it was a special dinner. All of the guests were there, and it was paid for gratis by the convention. And people who bought the Ultra VIP guest tickets got to come to the dinner and hang out with the guests and, all that good sort of thing.
Cool people like us.
Yeah, woohoo. You too can have dinner with Mike and Liz. No, actually, it would have been more cool. I'm sure people were coming to have dinner with John Schneider, Bo Duke from Dukes of Hazzard.
Great guy. Great guy, by the way.
He was awesome. He was so nice. Timothy Zahn was a guest. There were some cool people who were guests, and they would have been the people you'd have been coming to have dinner with, not Mike and Liz. But the weather was so bad. The place was only about a mile from where my parents live, so we didn't have much of a drive. But, I was like on pins and needles in the car going there because I could barely see. The rain was coming down so hard. We get there, we're having dinner. The rain is so loud on the roof. It was like someone was banging a huge drum over our heads. And we're kind of half joking to ourselves, we may have to move the con to this restaurant because we may not be able to leave it. We were able to get out, though. The next day, things cleared up somewhat, but it was still raining. I'm not sure, I think the weather scared off probably a big chunk of people. I mean, it wasn't deserted by any means, and we were also spread out among 5 fairground buildings, so that may have also had something to do with it not looking as, well attended as it was the year before. But we were there, we had our table. Our table was right across from Timothy Zahn's, by the way. We got to see a lot of his Star Wars novels, sorry. A lot of his Star Wars novels. We bought one that he co-wrote with David Weber in the Honor Harrington universe. Had some good, attendance by our table. Passed out a lot of Victorious buttons and business cards and some cool swag that Zach Glazer from Lesser Known Games donated to us.
Thanks, Zach.
Thank you, Zach, yes. Mike ran 2 games that day. First, he ran a Holmes basic D&D game, since Jim Ward was supposed to be a guest, but because of his health issues that he had been having, he was unfortunately not able to make Rose City. Although I did hear he made Gamehole, so that was cool. Anyway, so Mike ran the D&D game in place of the game that Jim Ward would have run on Saturday morning, and then a few hours later that afternoon, he ran a Victorious game.
It was interesting. The two of the people that were playing in the Holmes game was a guy and his girlfriend. Was it girlfriend or wife?
Wife.
Oh, he and his wife. This was the first time his wife had ever gamed, and apparently he and his gaming group are big Saber Die fans.
Nice.
So he thought that was awesome, and we promised to give him a shout out. Do you have the list with you?
Phil!
Phil!
Let's see. I've got his
Anyway,
full name somewhere.
I'll wrap
here.
up while you're looking.
Yeah.
While you're looking for the list. Sunday, I set up to run the second D&D game for Jim Ward, but nobody showed because Sunday afternoon the con was pretty much dying off then. So we loaded up and headed back to Denton. And on the whole, like Liz said, there was quite a few people there, but spread out in 5 major buildings, it was awkward to get to things because that horrible rain. You're fine in your building, but of course, you need to go to this building for whatever. And in a line of 5 buildings, we were in building 5, and of course all the games I had to run were in building 1. So we just
They're trekking back and forth
and back and
in the rain.
But anyway, it was fun.
It was fun.
It certainly, it wasn't like nobody showed. Got to see Joe Grant and Tony Immel, a couple of guys we know back in the day, and Tony's wife, Beth. They dressed up as Joker and his female psychiatrist wandering around. He was in an orange prison jumpsuit, but with the Joker makeup on. So that was kind of cool.
Nice.
Phil Chukinski.
Thanks, Phil.
And we're glad to know that we have listeners in Tyler, Texas. Woohoo!
I was going to say, instead of sending us emails, you can just go knock on your guy's door and say, hey, good episode.
And hopefully your wife has forgiven you for throwing that dagger into her character's back while you were fighting the goblins.
It was an accident.
That's his story, and he's sticking to it. That's been our stuff.
I forgot a game hold story that I must share. Is that okay?
Sure.
Because I haven't told you guys this. This is the all-time great con story. As you know, I'm a little going through a little bit of being self-employed right now, so I don't have a lot of money to spend. So I had decided towards the end of the con around Saturday, Zach and I were walking out for a smoke, and I told Zach, okay, I'm going to allow myself one purchase in the dealer room because my brother's birthday is next week, so I'm going to get him something. And Bill Webb of Frog God Games happened to be walking behind us to also go take a smoke break. And Bill is like, oh, well, when we get done smoking, we'll go back in there and we'll get you something for your brother. You don't have to worry about it. And before I know what's happened, Matt Finch and Bill Webb have autographed and personalized to my brother a stack of Swords and Wizardry hardbacks about 4 inches deep. And said, here, happy birthday to your brother. And I had to leave the dealer room because I was going to tear up in front of a bunch of men. I couldn't believe they did that.
Manly tears.
And my brother completely flipped out when he got it.
Awesome. Okay, well, barring any announcements, we'll finally start delving into the BLUEHOLME rules. The only announcement I've got is kind of something that I picked up off the piazza. And for those who are fans of B4, apparently the Wizards of the Coast Sword Coast Player's Guide has a reference to the demon Zargon from B4 The Lost City, which is kind of a nice shout out. Page 135. It was pointed to people by Birch Beer on the piazza, and it's pretty cool. It's allowed to use as a kind of patron for evil necromancers and stuff, the Undying One, which is kind of cool. They're not doing, as far as I know, any Mystara or classic campaign worlds in 5e, but it was, a nice that they tried to do a retro reference. So I thought that was cool. Anyone else?
I got nothing.
You got nothing.
I got nothing.
Jim's still sucking down Monster Energy drinks. So let's take a break for words from our sort of sponsors, and we'll head into BLUEHOLME.
Are you enjoying the show you're listening to right now? Want to help support the show? Why not head over to the Patreon site, patreon.com/WGP. That's patreon.com/WGP. and help support the network for as little as $1.50 a month. That's right, $1.50 a month goes a long way. Thank you.
Zach Glazer, head of Lesser Known Games here. In November, we will be running a charity game using our newest box set, Death and Taxes, to support the Extra Life Foundation to benefit Children's Miracle Network hospitals. You can support this effort by going to extralife.org and making a pledge in the name of Robert Glazer, or going to lesserknown.com/children.
Robert Glazer? No wonders you go by Zach. Listen, let me show you how to do this.
I cast charitable contribution. You will now go to extralife.org or lesserknown.com and make a generous donation to help Children's Hospital. You can even write it off both your death and taxes. See what I did there?
But
Don't interrupt me. And my Saber Die podcast minions will have a nice pledge link right on the webpage of this very episode to make that easy.
That's great, Thopus. Thanks.
Don't mention it, Robert.
The Saber Die Top 5. In 5, 4, 3, 2.
Top 5. BLUEHOLME. The rules. The game. And, well, I mean, since Holmes 77 by Thorkammer isn't out anymore, and Mazes and Perils really has been tweaked to point people toward AD&D 1E, this is probably the only real Holmes retro clone out there now, isn't it?
Well, as far as I know, that doesn't mean that there aren't any, but
Yeah.
I can't think of them at the moment.
Okay, well, then let's start with number 5, and we'll start with you, Liz.
Yeah, okay. For my number 5, one of the things that I noticed where it's kind of an interesting variant on the monsters in the monsters section. You know, several of the monsters which are normally designated as giant by Holmes, like giant ant, giant centipede, giant spider, you know, they're called great in BLUEHOLME. And then they're further broken down into 3 classifications: normal, large, and giant. So you've got, like, say, for the giant centipede, which is always the bane of my existence when I am playing basic D&D, because apparently they're attracted to me. But say you have the great centipede, and you know, it talks about in regular Holmes that the poison of the centipede is weak. You get a +4 to your save. Well, you only get a +4 to your save if it's the normal sized great centipede. If it's a large, it goes down to a +2, and if it's the giant version, you don't get a +2 to your save.
So you have even more huge centipedes to worry about now.
Yes! All the huge centipedes you could possibly want right here in BLUEHOLME. So, but I thought that was very interesting, where you don't just have the giant class, it kind of breaks down. So you could still have what's essentially a giant centipede, but they're not all the same.
And of course, as any DM, you have the ability to increase or decrease the power of any given monster. But it's kind of nice, especially in a rules that touts itself as the Prentice edition, which I assume is a reference to Apprentice, and is just another way of saying basic, essentially. Mm-hmm. It's nice to have those, I guess, a guide to show you. See, you can do this.
I am so glad you explained that to me, because I hit Google like crazy trying to figure out why they were called the Prentice Rules, and it got by me.
I am guessing. I haven't found any, verification that that's what was meant, but it just kind of struck me as Prentice. Well, Apprentice? I guess that's what it means, because there's a later complete rules that are supposed to come out in another year or so. So I'm just making that up. I don't know. Maybe I'm right, maybe not.
Well, I'm sure Michael Thomas will write in and let us know.
The Vile Traveler on OSR Gaming and Dragon's Foot. And so, over to you, Jim.
Well, as we all know, I have a yardstick I measure every edition of D&D by, and that's does magic missile automatically hit or not? If I did a T-shirt with Marvin the Mage, if magic missile doesn't automatically hit, you're playing the wrong edition. It's a joke.
Bah.
So in Prentice Holmes, BLUEHOLME's, exactly like OD&D, it does not automatically hit. You have to roll your missile attack for your poor magic user or wizard. And although he kind of tries to make it up to you by its versus armor class 9 at a +5, which I don't know why he didn't just say it's versus armor class 4, but there it is.
Yeah.
And
Well, actually, it'd be 9 and you get a +5 to your roll.
right.
So it's more like it's armor class 14.
Oh, see, I forgot which edition I was in. Yes, the other way. Okay, well, same difference. And it's not just because I like to play magic users. I mean, being buddies with Tim Kask, I just happen to know this is one of the knockdown dragouts they had at TSR, where Gary wanted it. You had to roll, and Tim's like, "Come on, guy's only got 1d4 hit points. Give him a break. It should automatically hit."
And one first level spell, and so you cast your one magic missile of the day, and you miss. That does kind of suck.
And then it's feats don't fail me now.
That's right. Get behind the fighters.
Okay, well, my 5 is a general comment of, and Liz and I talked about this, and it seems like almost nobody, when they do a retro clone, can stop themselves from fiddling with the rules a little bit. Sometimes they do a little, sometimes they do a lot. It's all I can think of is, maybe they're just importing their own house rules. One thing I found kind of confusing is in basic D&D, clerics turn by using 2d6 to see if you can make the number, and then you roll 2d6 for the number of creatures. However, in BLUEHOLME, it's you roll a d6 plus your level to see how many creatures you turn, which seems to me a bit of a jib because, first to third level, even third level, you're at most going to be able to turn 9 creatures, where with the original system you could turn up to 12.
Yeah, but it's hit dice, though, not creatures.
Is it hit dice?
Yes.
Okay, so that's even a bigger jump.
So, if it's not a skeleton, you might be in trouble as a low-level cleric.
And
although it does say, no matter what, you will always turn 1 if you make the initial roll.
And yet, if you look at the second combat example where the party is fighting the skeletons, when the cleric, just Strangelove, uses her...
she has an honorary doctor.
To turn its skeletons, she rolls 2d6. So that must be a typo that slipped through or something. So I'm not really sure which one is really meant here. But being an old schooler, I'll just go 2d6. So there.
Well, it does say at the beginning that there are no rules.
Very true.
It's like if there's something that you think it should be, and the people at your table agree, then do it.
Okay. Over to you, Liz. Number 4.
Number 4. Okay. Alrighty.
It's about time for you to steal one of mine. Usually around 4.
I may be stealing one of yours because this is a magic user centric one. So I don't know if I'm going to be stealing this from you or not. In the original Holmes rules, if the player has the ability to try for specific spells he wants when he is learning spells initially, there's the percentage chance to learn a spell. But you can pick, as the player, I want my magic user to try to know sleep. And you get to roll, and if you don't make it, then, well, you don't get it. But you're making the choice. In BLUEHOLME, all of the spells are randomly determined by the referee. The referee still rolls the percentage to see if the player's character gets to know the spell, but the referee's making the choice. The player is not getting to make the choice as to what spells he or she initially has in their spell book. I'm not sure how I feel about that. I mean, when you're adventuring, you don't have any control over what spells you find, but if you're just starting out and it's assumed that you had been studying somewhere, I would my assumption always was learning magic in a school from, a wizard who is teaching you, you get the opportunity to try to learn things that you have a specific interest in as a student.
I don't want to go all Mikey Mason on the rules, but I mean, a first level magic user with 1d4 hit points who goes out into the wilderness with anything but a sleep spell is doomed.
Yeah, and even then, sometimes sleep spells don't work if it's undead.
Mhm.
I would say if you don't have sleep, you should at least try for magic missile. Because something that's offensive.
Sleep, magic missile, shield. It should be the first three.
That you try for.
Yeah.
Trying to learn something.
Maybe not in that exact order, depending on how you like to play your magic user, but those three are the ones.
Or like that joke always goes, you're a first level magic user and you think you're supposed to have a really high intelligence, but you thought it was a good idea to go out adventuring with nothing but a push spell
and friends.
and a rusty dagger. It's like,
okay, it's your turn, mage. What do you got? Read magic.
I read magic at them. Yeah.
So that was an interesting twist on how initial magic user would learn their spells, and I'm not sure I agree with it, but I think in the end it's just basically what's your flavor preference. I don't think it breaks the game one way or the other, but I'm just used to doing it the other way and letting the player have some input as to what they might have starting off.
Okay. Jim?
Well, no, that wasn't one of mine, Liz, so good job. I guess I'll be forced to steal one of yours now.
Ha-ha!
My number 4 is that the BLUEHOLME is illustrated entirely with public domain art, which is, not atypical of indie productions like this that are done on a shoestring where there's not the art budget to go out and get pen and ink illustrations. But I think BLUEHOLME is way outstanding from the rest of the crowd for how well chosen the public domain art was. And I think that's probably why just the choice of public domain art was given a credit in the credits. Apparently, John Calvin Smith did this for Michael Thomas. But I mean, whoever did the art didn't just do what most of us do. Didn't just hop on Google and grab the first thing they see. I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Liz?
Oh, yeah.
I need something with a dragon. Okay, here,
It's a Chinese dragon.
So if you got to go with public domain art, this was like well chosen.
Cool. All right. Well, my number 4 has to be subdual damage. Now, both Holmes and BLUEHOLME have subdual damage, but in the original Holmes rules, they just gave how to subdue a dragon, and you kind of were expected to interpolate from that how to do
Interpolate.
Ooh. I just made that up. How to do subdual damage on other creatures. Whereas BLUEHOLME takes the system and is basically faithful, if not exactly in mechanics, certainly to the intent, and expands it to all sorts of creatures that you can subdue for whatever reasons. I think that's cool. So, Liz? 3. Oh, we're moving along here.
My number 3, magic items. The potential magic items that you can find, given in the back, for the most part, pretty faithful to what can be found in the lists in the Holmes Basic. You've got a few differences here and there. I don't think the potions list is exactly the same, but I can't recall precisely where the change is in that. The rings are all the same, but Ring of Protection. Holy crap, I want one of those. Holmes Basic, it was just your standard Ring of Protection +1. So it's like gives you, instead of an AC 9, you have an AC 8 with it. Ring of Protection in BLUEHOLME gives you a magical protection equivalent to Armor Class 2 and a +1 bonus on all your saving throws. It's like, I want that.
Yeah,
it's like, I want that.
That doesn't suck. And
That
if you
does
give them,
not.
and if you end up giving them the Staff of Clouting, where the wizard can do 2d6 damage with a hit. Whoa! Fighters out of the way. We're putting the wizard up front.
Well, see, that's a trade. You can send me out in the wilderness with only a read magic spell if I get that crap.
I know.
Yeah.
I do think that could potentially you could potentially break a campaign with that. You'd have to be real careful.
You say that like it's a bad thing.
Well, if you're the DM, it is a bad thing. If you're a player, it's fantastic, and I'm not joking when I say I want one of those rings, but I think you'd have to be very careful as a DM with those. Do not let your wizard have both the Staff of Clouding and the Ring of Protection, because they will womp all over everybody and
won't end well.
Skeletons again?
Four! Now in charge.
All right, Jim. Number 3.
My number 3 is that BLUEHOLMES almost precisely mirrors Holmes Basic in Race's class, including the slight ambiguity of it as it's written. When we were all kids, like I got Holmes Basic for my little brother in Christmas 1979, and he started his D&D campaign with it before he went to AD&D. And we were never exactly sure how the Races class in Holmes Basic was intended to run, because it's a little, it's a cleaned up version of OD&D, but it's still a little iffy. And that would have seemed to me like a good opportunity for, like you were talking, Mike, a little rules tweak just to make it clearer. Because, for example, in Dungeon Crawl Classics, it's very clear. You're a dwarf, and this is what dwarves can do. You're a halfling, and this is what halflings can do. So I just thought that was odd. I mean, he did tweak it just to the extent, let's see, if you want to get really parsy with it, in Holmes Basic, dwarves can be fighters or thieves, and in BLUEHOLMES it says most dwarves are fighters, and makes it even a little more ambiguous.
Yeah, and something I caught on there was, unlike the original Races class, say for the Elven Fighter Magic User,
right?
They take the armor of the worst of the two, rather than the best. So an Elven Fighter Magic User gets to run around with a 9 AC. And that seems really harsh. Maybe that was why he created the Ring of Protection, Liz.
Well, I suppose.
For those elves who don't get to wear armor when they're a fighter magic user.
But if you like your Holmes Basic the way it's set up, then this is just the same thing, and you're good to go. I thought maybe it was a missed opportunity to actually do some better tweaking.
Well, if I remember correctly, there is a section where, the DM has the option to allow multi-classing.
Yes.
Which was not something that was offered in the original Holmes set.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, my third is going to play off kind of on what Jim was talking about in some tweaks that were done that I don't agree with. However, I will admit that it is the quote-unquote tradition for any type of D&D playing now. In BLUEHOLME, thieves have a find and remove trap skills. In original Holmes, it was just remove trap.
Oh.
And the reason was anybody could look for traps, including dwarves with their stonework and sloping passages. That made dwarves more useful because they were better able to find those traps.
You've talked about this before. This is like my magic missile automatically hitting thing for you.
And he, like I said, BLUEHOLME went the standard, the way every D&D went from that point onward, find and remove traps. So if he did it because he was basically trying to appeal to the 90% of D&D players who want a find and remove traps role, I can't argue him that much. But personally, no.
It's two separate roles, though.
Very true.
So there is at least that,
it's not the standard fart roll.
And I'm looking at the...
Yes, find and remove traps. We call it the fart roll. So.
I'm looking at the table now. Say if you're a first level thief, you have a 20% chance to find the trap. You only have a 10% chance to remove it. So it's two different sets of numbers.
Anybody can remove a trap. It's just whether or not there's damage involved.
Oh, fart! I get it.
Find and remove trap. Yeah.
F-A-R-T. But yeah, I mean, in AD&D, it's basically the same number.
Yeah.
It's X
Find and
percent.
remove trap. Yeah.
But these are two different numbers, and it's a lot harder to safely remove a trap than it is to find it.
Although again, there's 20% versus 10% on percentile dice, but arguing the thief skill levels is a whole other topic. So we'll just skip that. All right, Liz, number 2.
Okay. Well, I would just like to say I'm going to just sort of cram two different things into my number 2. That 5-point alignment, yes. And ability scores in the correct order: strength, intelligence, wisdom, constitution, dexterity, charisma.
3d6, the way Gary Gygax and Crom intended.
That's right. Yeah.
So, that is awesome.
Okay, Jim, you're 2.
I mean, the old grognard in me just loves that the BLUEHOLME inherits both the OD&D and Holmes basics. All weapons do 1d6. We're not, although the option is presented just as it is in Holmes basic, that you can make variable weapon damage in BLUEHOLME Complete, which is not out yet. But I just like, the simplicity of that 1d6. I like it that it's in the rules, even though no one is going to play it that way, including me. Tim Kask doesn't run his OD&D game that way. But just, for the warm, fuzzy, that's how we played in 1979 when my brother was running, and we just didn't know any different. Right,
and of course, new people, which I always eternally hope are coming up and playing OSR games, that's like, well, they'll know they'll determine what works better for their group, but it's nice to have it there as the history of the game.
Don't you kind of just like imagining the arguments they had before any of us started playing, like mid-70s when they first did variable weapon damage, and everybody's sitting around arguing about, that's power gaming.
Yeah, that's power creep. But then, of course, this is the same game that had Meteor Swarm. Jim! That's fireballs. Jim! So if that even worked the arguments around the table that weren't printed must have been really, really amusing.
I am totally on Jim Ward's side with that whole Meteor Swarm thing.
Yeah, me too. And that's not just because Jim Ward's a cool guy. It's not called Fireball Swarm. It's called Meteor Swarm. So.
But anyway.
I'm glad we cleared that up and added Ward to all your Jims, so nobody thought it was me. Because as long as it catches stuff on fire, I'm cool either way.
Okay. Well, my number 2 is, again, I thought it was going to be a real dislike because he talks about fireballs earlier when talking about underground distance versus wilderness distance, the whole feet yards conversion thing. But he does clarify that spell effects and range still work at feet, even though it's out in the wilderness as opposed to in a dungeon. But he does the D20 fireballs only do a 20-foot radius crap and not filling the available space.
The Fiend!
Well, it's... Well, remember what in that short story for Harry Dresden when he's playing around the table and everybody's going, yeah, Harry, we know you're the real magician, but this is how the game works. We can't figure all that. It's just mathematics. Just fill out the... So...
Yeah, I'm on Mike's side on this one, Liz, because if I had to go to all the trouble to programming my brain to think and calculate those volumes, 30 years ago, then damn it, the rules need to say that today.
Yeah.
Yeah, but math has never been my friend, and I don't get all that.
Hey, D&D didn't make me learn negative armor classes. I would have been in much worse trouble in algebra. But then I thought, well, we'll see how he writes up the fireball spell. Since he mentions it here, there's got to be a fireball spell, right? No, there is no fireball spell.
No fireball for you 1 year.
Yet, you go to the magic items, and there's a wand of fireballs.
Oh yeah, and it says works exactly the same
Same
way
as
as
the
the
fireball
spell.
spell. I mean,
Which is
and it
not
gives
here.
66 damage, but it doesn't say anything about the distance range unless you go back into the. So part of me is like, that's really confusing and inconsistent. Now there's another part of me going, maybe he's just trying to do an homage to the original Holmes.
Which was even more confusing.
Yeah, so it's like, you got to use your brain for this to work. So this may all be intentional.
I mean, I love original Holmes D&D, but you've got to flip back and forth all over the place in that book to find stuff. It is not laid out intuitively in the slightest.
More than in the Brown books.
Yeah, well, that is true. That is true. But still, so...
Can I tell a industry insider secret about the Goodman Games writers?
Sure.
That you're going to
So it will
love?
not result in your execution by Goodman Games.
I don't think so, but because I won't name names, I won't say who amongst us does this, but there is a little clique of us that like to turn in our manuscripts with something purposely missing, like a table, a D8 table that only has 7 results because the 6th result is missing, intentionally, as an homage to the way they wrote and published rules 30 years ago.
Well,
and every once in a while we get away with it.
Cool. Well, it's like when I was looking through the Tegel Manor reprint by Goodman Games, and Michael Curtis did that adventure in the back, and I was reading it, and it's like he put in some errors and stuff, just like the old Judges Guild. It's like, wow, that's cool.
But I didn't mention any names, Joe Bittman.
We have no idea who you're referring to.
No idea. All right, number 1. Liz?
All right.
Last chance to steal one of Jim's.
I don't think I'm going to, but now that I've said that, it'll turn out that I did. Treasure tables.
Nope. You're good.
Awesome. I really like how he redid the treasure tables for BLUEHOLME.
Yeah.
It's so much more intuitive. In the original Holmes, you've got this one big long table, and it's a mishmash of what you would find in a horde and what you would find on individual people, just all crammed together into one table with no real rhyme or reason as to what is what. You've got treasure type G, that's, for a person, and then right above it is, treasure type F, and that's for a dragon horde. But you've got it split up in BLUEHOLME. There's one separate table for, getting treasure from individuals, rolling it up, and then you've got another table for large treasure hordes and rolling those up. And I think that is just awesome when you're trying to figure out what you're going to populate your adventure with.
Yeah, I don't know if it was Swords and Wizardry that did it first, but it seems like the idea of a horde table has really taken off among most of the retro clones.
Yeah, but I mean...
it's a good idea.
Yeah, it was there in the original big table, but you just had to know that treasure types B or X or whatever was what you were going to more likely find, say, with a dragon, as opposed to treasure type J, which might be a small band of orcs. And
I so used to have all that memorized, and it's gone now.
so I like that it's split up, and
Yeah.
the quantities go down too. If I recall correctly, in Holmes, it's in groups of thousands, and here in BLUEHOLME, it's in lots of 500. So I think that's a little more, workable, especially for a set of rules which is for first through third characters. I mean, maybe I'm just mean, but it's like I don't think a group of first level characters needs to find a treasure hoard that has just thousands upon thousands of gold pieces in it, unless you're going to be super duper mean and not give them any way to take it all back with them, and then they just cry all the way home.
Yeah, those DMs.
Yes. we're going to give you this incredible amount of money for doing this for us. Oh, yeah, we're a copper mining company.
10,000 gold pieces
in
copper.
I hate you, Kevin.
By coincidence, we have this wagon for sale that cost almost that much.
That's right.
What, selling mule? No, we don't sell our mules or horses. We're a mining we need them.
We need those.
But you can drag the wagon yourself.
Lord.
All right. Over to you, Jim.
So my number one is my last chance to steal one of yours, Mike. So about the skill proficiencies. No. Just kidding. There are none.
I was about to say, my brain must have shut that out because I don't recall it.
As I'm listening to us, we're getting pretty picky about this, and I don't want it to come away, at least from my point of view, that I didn't think this was just dynamite stuff. So my number one is that not only is BLUEHOLME's awesome, it's as though Michael Thomas did for John Eric Holmes what John Eric Holmes did for Gygax and Arneson. I mean, it's a rules cleanup and editing and representation of Holmes Basic where everything's in the order you would expect it to be in now. I mean, it's basically the rules fidelity is tight, but it's cleaned up and edited. So it's like a 2013 version of what John Eric Holmes did to the OD&D rules back in 1977.
Oh, I agree. And I'll basically say that my number one is I liked the description of the combat rounds. He kept the Holmes combat round consistent, but explained it a lot better. And he got very descriptive.
Yes, he did.
I did like how Thorkhammer was the combat example dwarf in the first combat example.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Nice shout out. But then you killed the goblin and then describes the goblin loosening its bowels in death. So that the dwarf then goes, I'm not checking his pocket.
Thunk! Message for you, sir.
I'm like, wow, that's a rough way of trying to keep PCs from going through pocket.
Like that would stop them.
True.
Yeah,
most
players would go, the DM is deliberately trying to make this as nasty as possible. He must have something awesome.
Something like a ring of protection or something. Yeah. So it was for what it was made for, a first to third introduction like Holmes was for OD&D. I think it really does its job. There are a few changes to the rules that I might quibble about, but as Liz notes in the very front, there are no rules.
This is historic. I don't think we've ever gotten to a top 5 without somebody tramping on somebody else's picks.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Woohoo!
Good job.
Yeah. We got to go back and do it all over.
No!
And on to random encounters.
How many people want to kick some ass? There are 7 ogres surrounding you.
How could they surround us? I had Mordenkainen's magical watchdog cast.
No, you didn't.
Satanic fungus rises from the forest floor and says, "You're playing D&D. You're playing D&D. This whole apartment is playing D&D."
Random encounters.
Random encounters. We have chosen a monster and compare it to its Holmes edition version to see if there's any changes. And of course, Liz chose a kobold.
Yeah, I knew to stay away from that one.
I probably should choose a kobold because I didn't pay attention to the directions and I chose a monster that did not have a counterpart in Holmes.
Yeah, he does introduce some new monsters.
If it makes you feel any better, Liz, the show notes said choose 3 monsters, and instead of reasoning that meant 1 apiece, I chose 3. So I didn't follow the directions either.
Okay. Awesome. I don't feel so bad now.
Maybe my students have something when they say my instructions aren't as detailed as they should be. Oh, well. Well, since Jim's got 3, you go first. Just choose the best one.
Oh, me. I'm first.
Jim?
Oh, yeah, because mine will be quick because it's very boring. I just picked 3 classic monsters and compared them. And I went almost in alphabetical order too, where it was skeleton, sturges, and rust monster. 3 classic monsters you'd expect to run into in the first 3 levels. And what I discovered when I picked them by that criterion was that the stats are all identical in both. So virtually identical. There might have been one little number off. You were talking about Mead getting hit by the Sturge. They do exactly in Blue Holmes what they do in Holmes Basic. They're going to hit you for a hit of 1d3, and if they stay attached and suck you, it's another 1d4 of blood drain. So it was kind of boring. It was like 3 monsters I picked are identical.
So nothing to critique there, because it's as is. Okay, Liz?
Well, my monster, which has no Holmes counterpart, because I don't know how to follow directions, apparently, I chose the Green Grabber, because I thought that was pretty cool. And I liked the fact that there are some different monsters that are not in your original Holmes Basic book. So if you want to change some stuff up in your Holmes game, you've got some ideas here in BLUEHOLME that you can use. But anyway, the Green Grabber, it's a mobile it's an ambulatory carnivorous plant. And they've got these shoots that are 30 feet long, and it can just snap out and grab you and pull you in, and the thing just starts chewing on you, literally eating you. And it does you get 2d6 damage per round that you're being chewed on. So as a first level character, even if you're a fighter, you could conceivably possibly be killed within 1 round if this thing manages to get a hold of you. They're pretty vicious. I will say I was kind of unclear. It says the hit dice 3d8, so 3d8 worth of hit points for the creature. But then it says that each of the 3 shoots has 6 hit points. Now, is that in addition to the 3d8, or is that part of it? I kind of think it would be in addition, but that's really,
and conversely, I would have said it's probably part of the total, like some other monsters. But then if you do that, you're going to have more than 3d8 hit points.
Right. So I don't know.
Yeah.
It could be super duper dangerous if it's got 6 hit points for each shoot in addition to the 3d8 hit dice that's listed in the thing. You do not want to run into this.
That sounds like a first level TPK to me.
I know. It's
from the description, it kind of reminds me of that monster from Expedition to the Barrier Peaks, a wolf in sheep's clothing.
Oh yeah, where it looks like you got a little bunny rabbit, or
it's stomp with a little bunny rabbit on top.
Look at the bones. No, but yeah. Anyway, as if that wasn't bad enough, then they enter this phase called Sleep Flower, where the plant sprouts this big yellow flower that attracts sturges.
Lord.
If you get near it, the flower opens up and sends out a puff of pollen in a 5-foot radius up to 3 times a day. And if you breathe it in, you have to save versus poison or you fall asleep. And since
the sturges...
Yeah, the plant will eat you, and if the plant doesn't eat you, the sturges that it's attracting will come and eat you. It's
I get the feeling Mr. Thomas was having a really bad day, running this really awful group of players, and decided, fine, I've had it.
This almost is starting to sound familiar. Is this monster from one of the early basic D&D modules, maybe?
Maybe. I mean, I remember when we were playing in Jim Ward's game. Oh, what was the one that he did for Castles and Crusades? The kind of horror
Tainted
box
Lands.
set. Yes, Tainted Lands. We were going through an adventure that he was running, and there was this field of yellow flowers that from a distance looked like daffodils or something, but then you get to them, and every single flower has like this little carnivorous maw, and this whole field just wants to eat you.
Oh, see, that's Jim Ward, though, man. On the Starship Warden, you don't even want to step on the grass because it's attacking you.
Yeah. Oh well.
But
Okay.
yeah, this is a monster for if you really, really hate your players and you just want to get rid of them all.
This will do it.
Well, Mike, presumably you followed your own directions correctly.
Yeah. And I chose a monster named after a little-known Prince gaming album, Purple Worm.
Oh, that's terrible.
Purple Worm. Anyway, not a lot of people know that. You won't find it in any book.
Thank you for giving us our outro music.
It's different because conversely, the Purple Worm in BLUEHOLME is not as powerful as the one in Holmes. It's got the same armor class, the same hit die, but it's only half as fast, 30 feet as opposed to 60, and the damage it does per bite is either 1d6 or 2d6 with the poison stinger plus poison. Whereas in Holmes, it was both attacks were 2d6. Other than that, the chance, it's not quite as wide, but it does still have the possibility of swallowing a person for the same 5 or 6 and 12 rounds respectively. Die in 6, dissolve in 12. So, yeah, it's a lighter, it's purple light. So, but, it's not so nerfed that I would say, better throw 2 of them at the party now then. Because again, we're talking about 1st to 3rd level characters, and this Purple Worm light could still cause the party a real bad time. So, it sounds like for the most part, monsters tend to be pretty close. And so, let's talk dragons.
In new Dungeons and Dragons, power is won by finding new ways to battle.
I can feel the darkness inside me!
And being completely dragon-flapping awesome.
Set comes with spellbook, ritual rites, playboard, sacrificial dagger, and dice!
TSR Hobbies, Dungeons and Dragons games, products of your imagination.
All right, Poyi, here we go. Let's talk format, layout. You've kind of already hit on that, Jim, with the art. Anyway, at least the public domain art.
Yes.
So, Liz, what do you think of format and layout?
Well, as an older individual, I very much appreciate the fact that there's a larger typeface than in the original Holmes. To be fair, the typeface for Holmes, very easy to read, even at a small, small pica. But yeah, it's very easy to read. You've got, some good white space around all the pages, nice art. The tables are very well done. About the only thing that I could possibly say that is a personal gripe of mine is there are the occasional paragraphs with the full justification where you've just got huge amounts of space between the words. And that bugs me, but it's probably not going to bug your average individual.
And as reference to our readers, both Jim and Liz are looking at hard copies of the BLUEHOLME Prentice Rules, because Mr. Thomas was nice enough to send them to us.
Oh, yeah, my hard copy is autographed to DM Jim, sod podcaster extraordinaire, Michael.
Yeah,
mine, it's all mine.
Ours says to DMs Liz and Mike, saving or dying with Holmes since Rumble.
Yeah, well put.
So, personalized autograph, that's worth a whole dragon right there.
Yeah. Okay, well, any final comments? I mean, it is available as a free PDF, but I couldn't find online where you can get it as a free PDF.
I've got all that information.
Cool,
Awesome.
Good, because I just scanned that book finally because I couldn't find it.
BLUEHOLMES can be found as a PDF on both drive-through RPG.com and RPG bluehomenow.com for pay what you want, which is Homer Simpson free. You're right. And as a paperback, you can get it at Lulu, either perfect bound or saddle stitch at lulu.com, which is $4.99 or $5.99 respectively, and you can't beat that price.
Chits not included. Okay, well, then give us some dragons, Jim.
I'm going to go with 4.5, and the only reason I don't go all the way up to 5 is just because of the public domain art, however extremely well chosen it was. If it had the budget to actually do real art and hired Lloyd Metcalf and some guys we all know to do it, then I would give it 5 out of 5 dragons, which means I couldn't do better myself.
Okay. Liz?
Well, the cover art does seem to be actual, original art. But yeah, all the interior art is public domain. I think it says Jean-Francois Bellew did the cover art, which is a nice little homage to the original BLUEHOLME art. You've got the dragon, which looks almost exactly like the dragon.
Like Sutherland's dragon?
Yes, that's awesome.
Except with a gender-diverse party, since it's 2013.
Is the wizard wearing a pointy hat?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
He had a wizard.
All right, there's a half a dragon right there.
So, I am going to.
A 1!
No, I'm not going to.
Because it's terrible! You can only play up to 3rd level, and all the classes suck till 5th.
Okay, you stole that from me. I was got it to mine. I was going to do the Mikey Mason. Whoa.
Sorry.
No, you finally got to steal. You got somebody to steal something. So
yay!
It's an actual Save or Die episode.
Great DMs think alike.
Yeah.
Okay. BLUEHOLME gets 4 dragons from me.
Oh, thank God.
It is pretty darn awesome. And it's the most out of all of the versions of the Holmes retro clones that I have seen. And it's been a long time since I've looked at Thorkey's Holmes 77 rules, but I think for the most part, BLUEHOLME is the most faithful overall to the original Holmes Blue Book. So I'm pretty impressed.
Okay. Well, I'm going to give it. I had originally planned to give it a 3.5 because I wanted to retain my crown as the low voter, but since Holmes 77 isn't out anymore, this is really it if you want to play Holmes Basic, and I think for that it does its job. I mean, yes, you can nitpick a little rule here and a little rule there, and of course I did because I'm Mike and do, but on the whole, this will give you the Holmes Basic game feel. So I'm going to kick that up to, and it's got an homage cover, so I'm going to kick it up to a 4.
Woo!
4 dragons. I could do 3.85, but talk about messing up the math.
Well, hey, you're the one that has to do the averaging, so
5. So
whatever you want.
4.166.
Yeah. So 666. Oh.
Yeah, I did that with an app because I can't do that math in my head.
Cool. Okay. Well, I hope this has been useful to the listeners. But it's time once again to head down that lonely dirt road, thumbing our way to the gaming distances of the future. And how are we heading down the road, Liz?
I was heading down the road, but I got caught in the spray of a weird yellow flower, and now I've decided that, maybe this dirt road is an awfully nice place to take a nap.
What could possibly go wrong?
I know.
Yeah.
It's literally a dirt nap.
Jim?
I'm going down the road with no spells memorized, so I don't care if Magic Missile doesn't automatically hit, because I've got that Ring of Protection and the Staff of Clouding, and I'm just smacking the crap out of every kobold I meet.
Who's your wizard daddy? Well, I am not walking or running down the road. I am riding on the back of a purple worm with little sweetness, singing "Purple Worm, Purple Worm," as we head out to episode 118.
That's right. And if you want to make sure that neither DM Mike nor I ever sing again on a show, you can send your checks to...
Wow, we not only
podcast@gmail.com.
We not only didn't steal any of each other's top fives, we got through a whole episode without a Doctor Who reference. Oh, damn it! Damn it!
Crap!
Oh!
Almost!
So close.
See everybody next episode.
Bye.
See ya!
Rearc! And we're out.
Podcast is a production of Wild Games Productions in association with D20Radio.com. The Saber Die theme music is provided by the band Mississippi Bones. You can find them at MississippiBones.bandcamp.com. Melee weapons for tonight's episode were provided by the D6 Dollar Store, where everything does just 1d6. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on Save or Die.
We skip emails and just do the show, and if at the end the show didn't go as long as we thought, we do a quick read of email and Jim can cut it and just stick it up front.
Oh, see, I like that. That's Vegas odds.
Oh, that's cool.
Okay.
The house always wins. We always run long.
Yeah, I was about to say, if we end early, haha, like that's ever happened.
I have nothing to say about a Holmes retro clone.